She says she can't connect. Oh, now it's connecting.
Oh.
Hi, you did it.
Should I switch? What should I do?
You're sideways. I know, I've been having a hard time trying to deal with all this technology. It's a disaster on my end, so I hope everybody can handle. Cool, so you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Am I blurry? You look pretty clear. Am I blurry or?
No, you look.
Okay. So there's this question icon at the bottom. You probably don't see it, Griselda, but I hope other people do. And it's the best way to ask questions on there. So I just want to say a few things before we get started. Yesterday was Max Lofano. Appears I was able to save that, which reminds me I should be recording this. I was able to save Max's interview, even though it crashed, but I did lose Max Dailies. But we're going to try.
Okay.
I think I just started recording. Okay, so you know, it's hard. It's breaking up. Oh, it's probably because I just pressed record. So Kathleen Mitchell is going to be here on Monday. We're going to be seeing her studio. Hopefully that's all still to plan. Kathleen's online now. Maybe she could mention it. We're going to see her space. And then, so there's nothing Sunday or Monday, but then on Wednesday, we're going to meet with Jim Brown and we're going to talk about all things bread and salt and also kind of future plans and architecture and stuff like that. So yeah, just looking forward. We're still trying to, you know, find other artists and people to talk with. So, right. Kathleen just said Tuesday. I don't know what I said. So Tuesday at 1 o'clock, we're going to talk with Kathleen. But yeah, Griselda, so you're working at home now.
I am working home.
Yeah, you were at Bread and Salt Seaport Village Studio. You had a really neat, nice, great studio that we built there. And because of the changes, you're now working from home. And I see you have a bunch of new stuff behind you. You obviously started new work, right? You left some stuff at the studio, or you took everything? What did you end up doing?
No, I took some stuff, like I'm making sculptures, but I'm making little nuts and hooks. So I just took little things to do sculpture here and then drawings on the back.
Right. But you couldn't bring like all your sculptures and things like that you were working on. So it's such a crazy thing. You kind of had to abandon a whole new process you had going at the Seaport studio. So you're massively affected in your process. But it's kind of neat that you have new stuff going on. You have new work. I just wanted to start and do these kind of interviews and I like longer form stuff. So I wanted to kind of get your background too. And I wanted to say something else. Bread and Salt, we're going to be doing an online store to try and support artists like Griselda Rosas and, you know, other artists that we're going to be interviewing. And Bread and Salt is creating an online store where Jim and Isabel have said that 100% of the proceeds of sales will go towards the artist. Bread and Salt will not be taking a percentage, but we'll have an online store where people can purchase it from our website, and then the artist would be responsible for shipping it and all that kind of stuff. So we just decided that a few minutes ago. Jim and Isabel did. So it's a lot of work on our end, upgrading the website, doing all that stuff, and just trying to make a way for artists to be able to sell work, and 100% of the proceeds will go to them. So we'll be doing that for 60 days once the website gets going. And it'll be just for the website. Gallery will be different. So that's pretty exciting. So hopefully we'll have lots of work of Griselda's on there for sale, and lots of other artists. So yeah, I want to talk about your background a little bit too. I don't know, are you okay doing all this right now? You're so quiet.
Okay, so
yeah, where did you start out? You're not from San Diego, right?
No, but I'm from Tijuana, so I'm just from across the border. So I've been coming back and forth for all my life, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna play dumb too. I've known you for like 20 years or something, but I'm gonna play dumb like that. So you were born in TJ?
Born and raised in Tijuana, and then I came here when I was my last year of high school.
Wow.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah. What high school did you go to then when you came?
In Chula Vista, Hilltop High School.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I remember you telling me stories that you would go with your mother to clean houses and stuff like that, right? As a young person.
Mm-hmm. We used to cross the border, and then my mother used to be a cleaning lady, and I used to join her and help her and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, crazy. What was it like? When did you first realize you liked art? You know, were you doing stuff as a kid at that time, or?
Well, as a little girl, I always drew and make pictures, and my father used to make watercolors and little drawings. So I was always involved with the arts, always. But I started making art seriously when I took a class at City College with a ceramist, Kim. I forgot her last name. YC. She's a ceramics teacher at City College.
Is she still there, or did she retire?
I think she's about to retire.
Okay.
She's a wonderful teacher.
Yeah. Who told you about City College, or who pointed you in that direction? How did that end up happening after high school?
I needed to go to college to learn English, so I took ESL classes at City College. And
oh, cool. Were you taking art in high school, or? So you just kind of stumbled into the art department at City College, or?
Like at age 25, like an older age.
Oh, okay. Wow. And then you ended up at SDSU. What was there somebody or something that happened at City College that pointed you to SDSU, or what happened?
No, I just applied to SDSU. I transferred.
And art was your focus, or what were you doing at?
Art was my focus. At that time, I knew I just wanted to make art. I wanted to make sculptures and little things. But then I started making big sculptures.
Was that because of a ceramics background? Because of that? Is that where the object kind of thing came from? Or?
Yes,
wow.
From taking YC classes at City College.
You probably told me that, but I must have forgotten. But I remember when I first met you, we were at your house, and you had been telling me that you'd been making these sculptures in your oven. And do you remember this?
I was making bread sculptures.
You were using bread, and you were adding things like rubber and like different things into the oven, into your home oven. And I remember at the time I was like, I'd never heard of anything like that, but I'd seen a few of your wall-mounted and ceiling-mounted sculptures that were so organic. They looked like root systems, or they looked like organs and things like that. And I just couldn't figure out what it was. And then you telling me that you had been putting stuff in the oven and making these kind of sculptures, I was like, you felt like light years ahead of any other artist that I'd been around that, was in my same kind of circle of friends and stuff. We were all people that I knew were painting and things like that, or drawing. And you were like, you were making some serious efforts as as an artist to try and, do unconventional things. And I remember that was just a pretty major part. But at that time you were at SDSU.
And I was trained by Richard Keeley too. So Richard Keeley is really eccentric, and he also makes you do things out of the studio space. So I was making bread sculptures.
And that was in Richard Keeley's class? Were you taking ceramics at that time too, or?
No, not anymore. I took a ceramic class, but I didn't like that everything feels very functional to me. So I started I like these functional things. So I started making sculptures.
Dysfunctional, not functional like ceramics would be. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so I mean, Richard Keeley keeps coming up. He's such a great artist. He's one of my favorite San Diego artists. And we had Max Lafano yesterday, and he's a student of Richard Keeley's. And Yeah, he approaches sculpture in such a, such a refreshing way. And, he seems to really be so influential with so many artists. But so who else was on campus at that time that you were talking with, or who was kind of influencing you at SDSU or City College? Or
Well, Richard Baker, another really good painter from San Diego State, and I took classes with Janet Coolin and Gail Roberts. Was kind of like my Gail Roberts was always around. She make these beautiful botanical flower paintings, and I always admire her. And then, and David Hewitt also was my teacher.
Oh, cool. Did you start working on paper? Because David Hewitt, does he teach drawing and things like that? When did you start doing things on paper? Because I've brought this up to you before too. I remember you were drawing on book covers and things like that. You were using these unconventional kind of substrates to draw on. Is that right? Am I? It's funny
I was always drawing.
The way you approach drawing and stuff, it wasn't on conventional materials even back then. I remember being so excited to see the way you were using, like, old books and things like that to be drawing on.
Yes, I started making lots of drawings, but for some reason I thought my drawings were not, I thought they were so intimate that I just kept it on my file. Oh. But then I started taking it seriously when I showed at Bread and Salt in 2017.
Oh, the works on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Were you embroidering paper then, or using I guess thread and things like that, or embroidery materials back then? Or is there any history of making clothing or things like that you were doing that kind of influenced? Or
I've been doing embroidery on paper for a long time. I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, long time ago. But they're always very intimate, and I never show them until recently.
Did you always
now
know?
With my son, when he started drawing, I like that he drew, and then I started stitching over his drawings.
Right. I posted on Instagram the drawing that I own of yours that has a kind of a watercolor feature that he had done, and then you had embroidered on top of it. I really love that piece. It's such a neat collaboration between a young mind that is so free and able to, be uninhibited or unhindered by composition. He just made this neat mark, and you kind of, played jazz on top of it. Yeah. So did you know your way around a sewing machine, or did you purchase a sewing machine? Did you purchase a sewing machine to use it for the works on paper?
I purchased, when I sold one of my early pieces, I purchased a really fancy, it's not a new sewing machine, but it's very fancy. It's should I show you my space, what I use?
Well, let's wait. Let's get there. I want to keep talking about some of your other stuff. But
so I recently, like about 6 or 7 months ago, I bought a nice sewing machine, because I used to buy cheap sewing machines and they just break because of the paper. Yeah. And I was breaking a lot of inexpensive secondhand sewing machines. Right. So this is a good one.
I just have a couple of photos. I want to show some photos from your show at Bread and Salt, so we can kind of see some of the objects too that you're making. But I remember we went and did a studio visit with you in TJ. You had a studio when you were living back in TJ. I think you had already had your son and decided to move back to TJ. So you were living in San Diego as an artist for quite a while, but then you had decided to move back to TJ. What made you move back to TJ from San Diego?
Well, economics.
So it all had to do with financial hardship.
Yes, and also because my mom at the time, she wasn't living in her house in Tijuana, so I moved into the empty house of my mom. So I used it as a studio, and I started making sculptures, and I have a backyard, and I was able to work and then kind of raise my little son at the time.
I mean, going backwards a little bit, I remember you had an accident while riding a bicycle. I haven't talked to you about that in years, but that must have really set you back. And I think that must have had a reason for you moving back to TJ, right? I mean, you must have had hospital bills and things like that that affected you.
My hospital bill was $80,000 from my
80
bicycle. I saw $1,000 from my bicycle.
$80,000. $80,000.
I had a terrible bike accident and I lost front tooth, and then I broke all kinds of things. I got a concussion and I got surgery, and I was at the hospital for 7 days. So, but I'm good now.
I remember how nice that bike was, though.
It was a nice bicycle.
And that was a hit and run, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a hit and run accident where you were hit on a bicycle, and your bicycle got stolen after that. Am I remembering this right?
My bicycle got stolen, but I found it around the street again.
Oh, wow. So it got stolen from the accident scene. So not only did you...
No, later on. And then,
oh. So that was a major thing. I never hear you talk about that kind of stuff, but you were already like, you were on such a path that, you know, so many people were talking about your art at that time. I remember you were doing so much neat stuff in San Diego. And I don't know what year that was. It must have been like 2005 or 4 or something. But so that accident financially broke you and physically broke you. And then not that long after, you decided to move to TJ.
Yes, I moved to TJ, and then I moved South Mexico, and then I came back a few years after.
Did you already have your son, or?
No, not yet. My son was born in 2013. 2013.
So did you get a grant to travel? What, you got a lot of different things. You got residencies and things like that, and
so I got an art residency through UNESCO in France. So I lived in France for a few months. And then I came back and I live in Oaxaca in South Mexico, and then I couldn't sustain it. And I came back and I did graduate school at San Diego State.
Oh, you went back to state? Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I had my son after graduate school.
Okay. And you were living in TJ at that time, or you moved back and forth to San Diego?
Back and forth.
Wow.
Back and forth.
And at that time, I actually have a photo of our little studio visit. You know, when I started working here at Bread and Salt, and I mean, I'd been helping with the building before that, but I remember it was like around 2015 or 16 when we started to try and curate shows and things. I was trying to rack my brain of, you know, artists that needed attention and were professional. And you were one of the first people that came to mind. And also we did a studio visit with you and at that time. So I found a photo of us in your TJ studio. Right. So you had a neat little studio in downtown TJ in kind of a seedy area. I remember it was really interesting going down there and seeing all the works that you had, which you can see them in the background. Those were works that you created down there, right? Or
some of them are graduate school, because when you guys visited was a year after I finished graduate school.
Okay. So at that time, when did you start curating and things like that? Was that part of any of the residency or grant that you got from the UNESCO thing for curation, or when did the curation thing kind of start happening?
No, not really. Who knows? I think it started a long time before with Chris Ward when he was Bread and Salt. He asked me to get a group of students to join to do a binational graduate or student show from Tijuana and from UCSC. And then I started getting involved in getting little groups here and there. I gathered a few artists to different shows, and I think it's just a community. Like, I think that's the only thing I actually is just for pure community, like for love of the other fellow artists.
I remember this show in TJ at the Technological Institute in TJ. you managed to curate and organize this incredible event at this technological institute in Tijuana. And it kind of blew my mind. And there were not a lot of Americans down there. We tried to get a lot of people to go and visit the exhibition because it was a one night only exhibition, right?
Yes.
Can you tell me about or tell us about that exhibition and the name of it and how that happened?
Yes, so my mom's house is behind the airplane. It's a kind of like sketchy neighborhood. And I drove by and I always see this airplane, empty airplane, and drove by. And I always loved the shape and I knew it was like just vacant. And I always thought maybe I can have an art show in there, or maybe I can do an installation in there. So
Wow.
then I talked to my friend Teresa, she's a poet, and she said, let's just do it. And then she helped me to put things together, and we spoke to the university, which was an engineer school. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna call my friends, and I called Griselda, Javier, Aaron Stallman, and Chris Ward, and myself. And I asked them if they want to do something at the airplane, and they say yes. So we did this. Oh, and Ander Aspiria, Mexico City artist. So we all were very happy and excited to work at a vacant airplane.
Yeah, I stole this photo from Aaron Skallman's Instagram.
Uh,
He managed to document it really well. So the night of the opening, I remember the Institute offered bus rides from the border for Americans to go. And a few of us, gosh, if anybody's listening, I can't remember who exactly went, but I know Trevor Armory and a few other people met at the border, Aaron Skallman and his family. And we ended up getting on the school bus, this old school bus right there in the taxi circle in downtown TJ. And they drove us to the Technological Institute. And it's so unfortunate, the bus was empty. There were only like 6 of us that ended up going from the US. But it was such an incredible show. It was kind of mind-blowing that they gave you access to that airplane. And you can see one of the artists decorated the outside. Do you know who did the vinyl on the outside of the airplane?
Ander Aspiri, and it's a powerful piece. It just silhouettes of people migrating because of violent events. So it's a very actual piece, actually. It goes with the momentum.
And I remember one of the officials didn't like some of the political nature of the vinyl, right?
Yeah, so we are not welcome to work at the airplane anymore. They felt offended. They felt like it was insult to the institution that we kind of expose what's going on in the country.
But nothing was graphic. You can see through these images, nothing was offensive or anything. It was very poetic and beautiful, the whole thing. And so I don't have photos of the inside. I was going to grab a few, but Chris Ward did amazing work, and Aaron Skallman, and you did a piece inside the cabin of the airplane, which was the cockpit where the pilots would be, which was so cool that you guys had access to all that stuff. That kind of thing would never happen in the United States. So unbelievable. And I remember the night of the opening, they had like students of the Technological Institute pretending to be airline employees, and they had like snacks and things that they were serving as if they worked for the airline, kind of thing. But this shot is so incredible. I remember the night of the opening, I don't know if you can see that, but just it was such this amazing moment of this couple hanging out on the wing of the airplane. That was just such a neat thing. And I saw a couple other shots of that same event, but what an incredible night in TJ. And it was so neat that you managed to do that yourself, just through an idea and through connecting with different professionals to make it happen. And I know you guys were using found objects and things like that, and people were collecting things from the airplanes, and they were traveling back to San Diego, and they were transporting these aircraft materials back and forth. I know Aaron had like a airplane door and things like that were just so suspicious looking. I can't imagine what it was like to go through customs transporting that stuff.
I think they did okay. Chris Ware and Aaron Stallman took lots of found objects from the airplane and worked in San Diego and then brought it back. And
Yeah.
Rizal just work in Tijuana the whole time. She made
Oh,
this.
Rizal was there.
She
Rizal
made
was
this.
there the whole time.
She was she had a student who lived in Tijuana and she stayed with her.
Wow. And I remember, so a lot of people might have seen this piece of yours, and this was in all the cockpit windows of the airplane. You had made these concrete pieces with the plastic and the egg on the inside. And that was kind of a site specific, or it was a site specific artwork that you had made for that location, right?
Yes, for the windows in the airplane pit.
Is that the first time that you started preserving things in the saltwater solution in these bags, or?
No, I've done it for a long time.
Things like dead animals and stuff like that. But I love this stenciling kind of pattern that you used automotive paint and stuff. And even here you're using embroidery to make this whole window with the plastic and the saltwater solution. How did you figure out to be able to preserve the materials inside the window?
Well, it's been a long time of long research, but when I first read an archaeological finding about bread being preserved because of salt. So I just did more research into preserving elements and animals on salt.
Okay.
Salt water.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen and I have a piece of yours that has a fish in it. So I know you've been doing that for a long time, but if anybody has any questions, use the question mark icon down at the bottom and you can write and we can see your questions if anybody's interested in asking a question. So I guess that kind of brings us more up to date, this bread and salt. So we did a group show, but I just remember this moment when we had you do a solo exhibition and you started using this slingshot material. You had been doing it before that, but you had stretched the slingshot material to these plates from the floor, and you had been using concrete and all these different materials, including the salt and stuff like that. Where did you start finding these materials, or what were you thinking when you're out looking for stuff? Was it living in TJ, or what were you doing?
Well, it's living in Tijuana is the everyday exposure to like noise and then these very playful ways of resolving things and making things and then fixing things too. So when I live in Tijuana, I always go to Mercado Hidalgo, and I know many of you know Mercado Hidalgo, but I have a long love relationship with Mercado Hidalgo since childhood.
But
so
what is it? Sorry,
Mercado Hidalgo is a little Mexican market, so you can find handmade Mexican toys, handmade things that are not made in China, basically. So I want to get for my son like handmade toys, and I always go there. So I started just collecting these little handmade toys, and handmade toys kind of inform the rest of the work.
So like these horse toys, these things that kids would be riding. This is a wall-mounted sculpture that you made for Bread and Salt. And I can't remember how many you had. It was like 10 or so of these wall-mounted assemblage sculptures. And these are some of those toys you're talking about.
Yes, those are some of the toys I bought for my son and for myself. And I destroy them and then deconstruct them pretty much.
Yeah, they're all so different. So they're all very handmade and original. You know, none of them are exactly the same. And so you managed to use things like concrete and epoxy still, right? You're using resins and stuff. And
no resins. I stopped using resins.
Why did you stop using things like that?
It's too toxic. So I use the most toxic things is of course I use concrete, and sometimes I use epoxy to join things, but I try not to.
So you're not burning rubber and bread in your
No,
house
not anymore. No.
Which in a way it's kind of sad, but there are alternatives. I think we got a question here. I just want to see. Okay, here's a question. Hey Griselda, great art. Curious if the drawings and small paintings behind you correlate to some, I hate it when it does this, it's hard to read, to some of the more site-specific or material, gosh, I guess keep the question short because it won't let us see the entire question. How can we sum this up? Curious if the drawings and small paintings behind you correlate to some of the more site-specific. So
yes, they all correlate. They all have this like colonial iconography that I've been researching for a long time. So they all correlate in like image making.
I know you mentioned this kind of the way you did this patterning and stenciling with especially the blue, and you talked about ceramics and this kind of colonial this trade that was happening in South America with the Far East and things with ceramics. Am I making that up?
No, it's in South Mexico. So this is called Talavera. So Talavera is a blue tile, like the tile that you can find in Portugal, or like Korean pottery, or even Japanese pottery has this like blue tile like quality. So that's completely influenced from Asia to Europe and then brought to Mexico, and then every country, every nation made it their own iconography through these blue tiles.
Tatiana Ortiz Rubio says
she loves Puebla. Tatiana loves Puebla. Yes, Tatiana from Puebla.
Is Puebla French, or is that what's the influence in Puebla?
Well, Puebla is French influence, Spanish influence, and indigenous, of course, and then this new society.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of your work, you're doing tons of research into anthropology and everything. You're trying to really dig in and not just have it be an art reference. So we have a couple questions here. I want to see what else is going on. Oh, Samara says, tell us about your space at Seaport Village. Can people visit?
Yes, you can visit. It's a really wide space. I mostly make sculptures in there. You will not see many of the drawings, because the drawings, I make them when my son is asleep. When he goes to bed, I start sewing, and he doesn't wake up with the sewing machine. So a lot of the work is done here.
So Seaport Village, we picked that space because it's all windows. You know, we wanted to pick a space where an artist would be on view, and you know, we wanted to put pressure on whoever was in there to engage with the public. It's something that we have similarly at Bread and Salt for our artists in residence here. It's kind of a fishbowl. So when we got to pick that space, we all saw that space and we were like, this feels right, you know, and we built a couple walls in there and demoed a bunch of stuff. It was an old restaurant. And so now people can look in the windows. So I think you can still take a walk even in this kind of quarantine area. I don't want to condone anybody to go out and do anything that is frowned upon, but I think going out for walks and things is still okay. And Seaport Village as a whole is open. The bayfront is open. And you should be able to still walk up to your studio and look inside the window and maybe see what you were working on, right?
Yes. So I have some works on the wall. And also I was planning to invite artists or this is a very gender oriented practice, to do embroideries, like one day embroidery on little hoops about female works. So I was planning on doing this for every Thursday event.
The embroidery club, you just started that.
Yes.
So maybe we can do like embroidery live, you know, maybe you can figure out a way to connect with people and answer people's embroidery questions. If anybody has any questions, please ask them. Otherwise, I think we're kind of up to date. So you've done solo exhibitions at Bread and Salt. You've been in some group shows here. You're our Seaport Village artist in residence. And that space, you have that space kind of long term. We're treating the Seaport Village residency as a more longer term space for an established artist that can work independently. And the space that we have here at Bread and Salt is more for newer artists that have not yet had real studios. So the reason why you're there is because you've been so busy. How many shows were you in the last few months?
In the last 3 months, 9.
You were in 9 exhibitions in the last 3 months. So let's name off what these exhibitions were.
So I started with Locke's art show in the Bay Front Gallery. So I show there, and then my work, the exhibition just finished, and then hola Tatiana, and then the San Diego Art Institute. I had a show at Mira Costa College with Anna O'Kane. Let me just think.
You're forgetting.
I'm forgetting. At the City College Gallery with the
your own show that you. So you're also a curator, and you created this really fantastic exhibition called Ready Lane that has traveled around. It's been, you should tell us about that. How did that end up happening? How did you get that programming going?
Well, I always want to like kind of say thank you to my friends, and I know a lot of San Diego artists want to show in Mexico, but they don't know how to approach, like Mexicans don't know how to come here and approach a gallery. I know for Americans it's the same enthusiasm to cross the border and show in the other side, as most artists are very open and they don't have the same value system as other people don't create art. So I know a lot of people want to show across the border. So I make this group show of like collective of people that are tied in a way, in a relationship, like friendship and things. So I just put all of us together, and then we've been showing our works in Baja and then here recently at City College.
Was that grant funded, or how did that work?
No, it was just, I went to the Florence Biennial.
For a residency, or?
No, to show at the Florence Biennial.
Jeez. I should have written notes or something. But you did a residency in Oaxaca too, right?
No, I lived there in a indigenous community just to learn textiles and hand weaving and all.
Tell us about that. How did you end up in Oaxaca to do that? What got you to go to Oaxaca?
After I graduated from San Diego State on bachelor's degree, I decided that there was not much for me to do, and I couldn't find a job or anything. So I just got work waitressing, and then I decided to just move to Oaxaca suddenly. So I moved there, and I met an indigenous family, and I started visiting them, and then eventually, like 2 weeks after, I was living with them, and they make handmade sandals.
Wow.
So I stayed with them for like a year and a month.
No way. And that was.
But I was very young. Young people can do that. Young people.
But you were compelled because you wanted to learn an indigenous practice, or what were you thinking?
No, I went to Oaxaca because I wanted just to be involved into a society that makes things by their hands, like
wow.
something that is more true to who we are.
Wow.
And then I met these people that were selling sandals on the street, like handmade Mexican sandals, and there was a girl my age, and then we started talking, and she invited me to her community far from the city. So I went, and then I lived with them.
Wow. So do you know, this sounds so stupid. Did you make sandals? Do you know how to make some sandals?
Mm-hmm. I know how to make sandals. Handmade sandals, leather sandals, textiles.
Are they always leather?
No, I can make it out of textiles, but they never look good. They always look kind of, I don't know. I'm not a master. I know how to make them, but not.
Wow.
I made one for Fernando, for my boy. I made pair of sandals, but they hurt. So he decided not to wear them.
So how old is Fernando?
6.
Fernando's 6. And I know he goes to so many art shows. He must, what does he think of what's going on with his mom being an artist?
Not much, but he's very kind of like, he asked why his work, the drawings that he makes, are not on the wall too when we go
Right.
to museums and things like that. So I always find
Like,
that funny.
he's like, instead of the, you know, so many viewers are like, my kid could do that, you know? You ever, people, I hear people talking about my own stuff sometimes, and they're like, you know, when they don't know the artist is there, they're like, my kid could do this kind of thing. So it's funny to hear like Fernando saying that he's like, I could do that, you know, that's easy.
Fernando thinks his work should be on the wall.
And it is, I mean, so you do collaboration with him. I know that. Are you still, so at home right now, are you doing that kind of thing?
Yes, but I don't think he likes it that I draw over his drawings anymore. He doesn't like it. He used to be
So now,
okay when he was 3, but now he's a 6-year-old who is thinking, oh, my mom is sewing over my drawings. I don't like it.
yeah, he's his own man. Okay, I have a couple questions here. I wanna just see if we can. Somebody's asking, are there any plans to do a workshop in the future?
Yes, I always have plans to do workshops, but I don't know. Like, I'm planning to do workshops about maybe embroidering on paper, but I'm not sure when. But yes.
You know, we might be stuck here in isolation for a while. Maybe you should get the courage to just start doing it online, you know? I want to see if there's a couple more questions. I agree with your choice to avoid resin. My question is, do you know of people practicing expressive art therapies in TJ? Do you know of people practicing expressive art therapy in TJ?
I don't know any expressive, I don't know, graffiti artists.
You do know a lot of graffiti artists down there. Is graffiti just there's obviously so much more graffiti and street art down there. I know a lot of people do street art tours and things, and every time I go down there, I'm just kind of blown away at how much creativity is on the streets in TJ. It's something that you see in a bigger city like LA or New York or San Francisco, more street art. So you know a lot of street arts down there.
As I live in a studio with graffiti artists, which are HEM, H-E-M, Hecho Mexico, and they're like a big group, well-known graffiti artists. And I share a studio space with some of them. And next to me was Jaime Risotis. His studio was next to me. This was a long time ago, like 2010. So I started knowing a lot of graffiti artists.
And you curated a graffiti art show that was at Southwestern College.
Oh, yes. With Spell and then Chente. Both of them are from him. And it was a very nice show.
Sorry, what is the name of their...
Hecho en Mexico is like a really well-known, a very traditional, not tradition, a very
traditional graffiti or traditional street art?
Cultural, no, it's a historical reference for border graffiti.
Say the name again. Say it slow because I keep losing it.
H-E-M, Hecho en Mexico.
Oh, okay. H-E-M.
There is a spell.
So made in Mexico.
Yes, made in Mexico.
Cool. I am the whitest person over here. I can't understand anything. To the sculpture, oh no, this was an older question. If anybody has any questions, we're going to be finishing up here pretty soon. So Samar says, how about the art prize? Are you making something for that?
I actually made the work that I made one specific sculpture for the San Diego Art Prize. And we don't know what's happening right now. I don't know if how the show is coming along. But I did make a new piece for the San Diego Art Prize, and I was planning to show also previous pieces, embroidery pieces.
Has anything been postponed? Any shows or anything that you're in right now?
I haven't heard anything from the San Diego Art Prize, but I'm imagining.
Yeah. So right now, I just want to say too, right now you are trying to live as Melissa Walter just says, we just got the email that it was postponed. So the San Diego Art Prize show is postponed. That was planned for the La Jolla Athenaeum.
Mm-hmm.
So that's unfortunate to hear, but I think everybody kind of was assuming that all this stuff was going to get postponed. So I just want to say that you're living as a professional artist. It's what you do. You make your money and you pay your rent and your bills through selling work as an artist, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you said that you were in 9 exhibitions just recently in the last 2 months. How many works did you sell from those exhibitions?
1.
You did sell 1. You sold 1 piece in 9 shows. And you are one of the artists that's going to be in the San Diego Art Prize show.
Yes.
And right now, I know you're working towards a solo exhibition for the Museum of Contemporary Art San Diego also.
Yes.
Do you have
So I'm making a lot of work. Actually, the piece over here, the large piece I'm working on, is a large embroidery piece made on ostrich skin. Ostrich skin. I can never
ostrich.
say
Unfortunately, I don't know why all these artists are doing all this stuff with dead animals.
No, this is fake ostrich skin.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm like,
it will be very expensive to get a real one.
That's good. Thanks.
So I'm making all these large, not all these because they take a lot of time to make just one, but I'm making these larger piece of embroidery for the Museum of Contemporary Art. And I'm also making sculptures, an installation.
Cool. Well, I just want to reiterate that Bread and Salt, we're going to be creating a web store, and we're going to have some of Griselda's work and a lot of other artists available to purchase on the web store, where the artists will get 100% of the proceeds of the sale. And the works will be more affordable. There'll be small works that the artist can ship from home, works on paper and small sculptures and things like that. That way we can all try to support these artists like Griselda that work as a professional artist and struggle to pay bills sometimes. I mean, you know, I don't know how much you want to say, Griselda, but I know that it's been hard and you've been struggling as an artist to make a living. And you're one of the artists that everybody thinks is making it. You have all these opportunities, and we're expecting the public to come out and support you. And people might be misinformed thinking that you're doing really well, but you're struggling like everybody else. You have rent to pay, you have a son, and you're not selling work like everybody might think you are. But, you know, I know you have a lot of fans out there, and I know that a lot of institutions in town like Lux and Bread and Salt and the Museum of Contemporary Art all think that you are a, you know, high quality professional artist. But, you know, everybody needs to step up, and all these people that have the ability to purchase work right now, it's a great time to go and support artists. So we'll have Griselda's work on our website soon. As soon as she finishes up some of this stuff, we'll start posting it. I see we have one more question here. Can you talk a little bit about your creative process, especially being a parent?
Well, especially being a parent, my biggest struggle is to make time to make art, because first and most important is my son. So if my son needs me, he needs to make homework, he needs to go to school, so I make work at night when he goes to bed. But I'm being informed a lot by being a parent, because a lot of my embroidery pieces and sculptures are by handmade toys, and I've been doing research about the process of creating. A lot of kids' toys are military based. They come from men war processes, like the horse toy and the slingshot and things like that. So I'm informed through my son. My practice is informed by my son too.
Do you want to start showing us some of your studio, some of the stuff you're working on?
Yes. Yes. So I'm gonna do a little bit of. So this is my table. I don't know if you guys can see. Like over here, I started with a little background like this one. I think I posted on Instagram before, and then I put this on the. Can you guys see? Can you all see?
I can see, but yeah, people speak up if you have questions or if you can't see, if it's too blurry.
And then I just put it on the sewing machine and I start embroidering. But I also do a little bit of so I have little things like this. I do like paper collage and things like this, and then I just play with it, and then I keep working on it. And then I use watercolor, and I mostly use these little inks because they're more strong. And then I use these for this is a kind of thread I use for embroidery on paper.
So you're using embroidery thread and you're using concentrated watercolor ink.
Yes, and I sometimes I do things by hand, like over here on a embroidery loop. And I often ask what kind of paper I use. I use these I don't know if you guys can see, but I use this. This is one of the other drawings I'm making. I use these.
Point the camera down farther. It's kind of just, yeah, there. Oh, so you're using, that's really nice paper.
That's very expensive paper because
yeah,
it's the only paper that goes on the sewing machine. So
yeah, it's very good. Does it say the pound, or so how thick, or is it cold or hot press?
It's cold press, and you have to be, this one is 140 pounds, so you have to be heavy paper.
Yeah, and so that's pretty thick, and it's cold pressed, so it's got kind of a rough surface. It's not like a really smooth surface.
No, this is it. And these are basically all my materials that I use. And I also use, can you see this one? It's maybe. So this is my watercolor. So this is what I use. Can you guys see?
If you point the camera down just a little bit.
Like this?
Yeah. Oh,
so I use this brush. I only use this brush for watercolors, and I use this watercolor. What is it? So this is my, can you guys see? No.
Yeah, so you have kind of a watercolor palette going, and it looks like that's a Japanese style brush.
Yes, I use a Japanese style brush. This is my sewings, all the threads.
So you have a big palette of colors of thread and stuff like that.
Yes, and these are the most recent. I just made these drawings in the last 3 days. So I make these 6 drawings on 3 days.
So I hope some of those will be available on our website. So those are all like 9x12 size, pretty, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Cool. What else are we missing? Are you inspired by, I guess, allegory or story? Or like the big piece behind you looks like it has this kind of, you know, big story going on here with these. They almost look like, I think I've talked to you about it before, Anasazi dancers or things like that. Where are you getting the inspiration for the figures and things?
There are the Anasazi dancers, and then also so I started, I have to go back a little bit. When I got the grant, I wrote an article about post-colonial legacies, about the Elizabethan rough color. Anyway, so I started doing a lot of research on post-colonial legacies, but I encountered a lot of like the very first drawings of children's in the New Americas, what they call the New Americas. So I gather a lot of, on PDF file, I have a lot of drawings of indigenous children right after colonization. So I kept
wow. Where did you find that? So you were doing research on early children's drawings after colonialization?
Not children's drawings, but children's drawings about children, like what?
Oh, okay.
So I have a lot of children's drawings, and then I kind of like do little collage about them, and then I start blowing them and playing with them and doing embroidery pieces about children's after colonization.
Wow. That's a lot of heavy duty information that could be talked about for a really long time. Which, yeah, I mean, do you write about your work? Are you writing about any of this stuff? Or are you just letting the visual of the artwork tell a story? You know, because you're pulling from all this history in the Americas and things of the colonization and everything. I mean, where are you?
Well, I'm writing, but right now with this quarantine, and I know a lot of.
Unfortunately, I think that these Instagram live videos need to be shorter. I get carried away talking and everything. So I'm going to have to learn to keep these shorter because Instagram, I think, and to support a longer conversation. Trying to get Griselda back. Hi, people that are coming back. Thanks for coming back. Hi.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Don't ask. Yeah, like Melissa Walter just says, it boots you after 1 hour. So I need to get better at this. Unfortunately, I drink a lot of coffee and I like to talk about art. So I'm, kind of jacked up to keep talking at length. So, but you do writing. Is what kind of what we were saying. You do delve into it, right? So you are writing about this stuff too. What else are we missing just to kind of finish up here?
I'm missing that. Thank you for these. Thank you, Salt. And this will have an end. We will just make work. Yeah.
Most important thing is to do and nothing else. I think it's a Picasso quote. I just pulled a Picasso quote out. I don't know. When is your exhibition at MCASD?
August.
August. So hopefully that doesn't get postponed. I think you'll be safe there, but we'll see.
And I want to say also I'm working with Anthony Graham, and he is been really involved into what I'm doing. He goes and sees what I'm doing, and he gives me feedback, and he's been really good working with him.
And Anthony Graham is I want to say he's the associate curator at MCASD. So he's been working directly with you to curate an exhibition.
Yes, he's very professional and very human too.
Yeah, Anthony's great. Hopefully he watched some of this stuff. I wonder, hopefully you guys will be doing a talk and, writing. I wonder if they're going to do a catalog for that show or anything like that. Well, yeah. So just for everybody, keep in mind that we're going to be doing the Bread and Salt web store where people can purchase Griselda's work and support her, and 100% of the proceeds for 60 days is what we're saying. The 100% of the proceeds will go to supporting the artist. Bread and Salt won't be taking a cut. The next video that we're doing will be on Tuesday with Kathleen Mitchell. Kathleen does the Art Hell glassblowing studio. It's the only permitted indoor glassblowing studio in San Diego. I know Griselda knows her. It's an amazing shop that Kathleen has, and it's something that is really special, and it's here at Bread and Salt. So I guess that's it. And we're going to keep trying to do more of these videos and stuff. So thank you very much, Griselda. It's been great reconnecting with you and hearing all these stories again too, and all this different stuff. So I guess we're going to end it.
Okay, gracias.
All right, bye.
Bye.